Good evening, everyone. Dr. Pete here, and I'm very proud to say tonight that Tanner is joining me too. So this is a Dr. Pete and T episode, and we decided to do this pop-up tonight because T is in Rapid City, South Dakota, and I'm here in Phoenix, and our respective families are going to be traveling to different parts of the country over Christmas. So we want to say Merry Christmas to everyone. Uh, but the reason for our pop-up tonight is because we were both really impacted by the break room nightmare. And I'm going to turn the show over here in a second to Tanner, and so she can tell you her background and her managing position and what drove her to be inspired to be talking about this tonight. Um, Most of you that follow me know that about a week or two ago, I introduced the polyol fructose acid unified theory of metabolic disease. It was something I've been working on for about 5 years. And I'm currently involved with another scientist in writing a manuscript for this. But anyway, the main point being that uh, this theory allows us to clarify what's happening with various macronutrients when we eat them. And I made this slide at the request of Bitten Janssen. She's a really crucial mentor for both Tanner and I. And the issue is that we activate this pathway, we activate this metabolism if we start in the upper left-hand side of the slide, when we take in sugar, alcohol, fructose with incoming added sugars, umami, which has to do with processed food and processed meat, and by the way, hyperglycemia. And when we take in these substances, they interact with the pancreas and the liver right out of the gate once they come across the intestinal lining. And this causes a shift in states. And I mean, this might sound a little abstract to everyone, but it causes the liver to actually shift from a burning state to a storage state, which is characterized by systemic inflammation, alteration of nitric oxide regulation, which leads to high blood pressure and an elevation of insulin resistance, which can, if you follow the arrows here, lead to metabolic disease. Now, those two circles at the bottom of this figure, I want to explain. We're not in exact order here because it takes time to develop metabolic disease. In fact, for most people, it takes decades to do this. But you'll notice that the second circle to the left there at the bottom indicates the brain, because these substances that we're talking about that we started out with in the upper left-hand corner there that are operating with the liver and the pancreas and other organs too, and you can see I have the brain up there, has a brain effect. And it drives behavior towards food and the drive to eat with preferences for certain macronutrients, in particular sugar. And in the sugar, the highest preference is for fructose. So what we want to do, because we're going into the Christmas season, and this is the only opportunity for Tanner and I to really do a live show together, because like I said, we're going to be in different places, is we want to talk about what's going to be happening to all of us going into this. I mean, there's Christmas parties, there's the break room, which is going to be full of all kinds of Christmas candy and whatnot. And generally speaking, we want to avoid eating that stuff. And we realize that we're really kind of walking a fine line here. Unless you already exist in a low carb eating environment, perhaps the idea of saying no to all these sweets and chocolate and all the rest of the business is not something that you're ready to do. But we want to let you know that the problem is with this is that once you generate, if you look back at the top of this slide, once you generate this shift to the red state, the fat storage, the systemic inflammation and whatnot. If you're eating these kinds of treats all day long, then you basically are creating a situation where you're in the red state chronically, and where you're doing this day in and day out, week after week. It's one thing. Those of you that have hear me say this all the time. But during Christmas time, this is even a worst case scenario because of the tendency to eat these foods, if even we call them that are super high in sugar and super high in fructose and super high in hyperglycemia. What that means is that you're going to very easily activate this pathway, and you're going to keep it activated. And we've got a few weeks here going until the first of the year, and we're past this. And it's not a healthy situation to be in. Anyway, with that bit of background, I'm going to turn the show over now to Tanner, who really wanted to talk from the heart and from her own professionalism about this issue.
Hi, everyone. It's good to be back. For those of you who haven't seen me for a while, I had a baby. So he will be 6 months old in a couple days on the 20th. So I've been very immersed in, I got a work promotion on my day job, and I also am a full-time mom now. So my full-time job is like 24 hours now. It just is like a constant. It doesn't stop. So that being said, everything else has kind of been trying to manage everything and get everything, figured out. But I'm back, and I'm so happy to be here and making this my priority again. And I wanted to get on here and really point out that there's some things that I've seen. So I'm a accounts payable supervisor. I manage a team of 4. They're incredible. I love what I do. It's really, really fun. The environment's really, really great. Going to work, as my husband says, he's like, I've seen you so excited to get up and go to work, and it's really cool for him to see me excited, and it's really excited for me to feel that way. But over the last week, something that's really been really been nagging at me is all of the sweets that line the break room, or all the cookies that come in, or the donuts that show up, or the cakes that show up, or just tons and tons of sweets. And I think I've been having this, like, I don't know, epiphany. Maybe it's because I'm a new mother, but now I walk down the aisles at the grocery store, and it's like everything I see, like red crosses down all the packaged aisles now. It's just like me, and now I see all the candy that's coming in there, and then my brain's like me, like red, crosses and signs and stuff, because I'm actually terrified to touch those aisles because of metabolic disease and how packaged foods and fructose, candies and donuts being so terrible, donuts have on metabolic health. So I kind of wanted to talk about some tips and maybe some ideas on how we can navigate this, because the reality is once you see that there, and Dad can probably go into the science about this, right? Once you see that there's a donut, or if you see that there's a piece of candy and you're like, oh man, that piece of chocolate looks really good. And this has happened to me. I'm not saying that this hasn't happened to me, I'm saying that I saw that donut, that glazed donut in there, and I was like, wow, that looks like really, really, really good, and I didn't eat breakfast this morning, and it's really taunting, and it's like, that would be a really good, thing to bite into, T. And I'm like, no, it really wouldn't, because I would immediately go into this like spiral of feeling sick to my stomach. I would get a headache. It would just go left field. So I'm going to tell you some things that I've been doing to try and navigate this. Number one, during this time, I am bringing my breakfast. I have my coffee with my heavy cream in the morning, my 1 cup of coffee with heavy cream, and I am packing 2 hard-boiled eggs, some cheese, some salami, anything that I know if I'm getting like anything to satiate me, right? To get to that point where I'm not even thinking about that donut or something that's there, because once it's happened and once you've gotten to that point of like, oh, I'm really hungry, my stomach now, my brain is communicating with my stomach that I really want that donut. It's hard. It's your red dog, first of all. Second of all, it's hard to navigate away from that. So how do you do that? You come prepared. Make your breakfast. It is so worth it. It is so worth it to spend the extra couple minutes or the night before to make sure that you are prepped and planned and prepared. If it's breakfast, if it's lunch, if it's not something you normally do where you make breakfast, lunch, do it. It pays off significantly knowing that if you have something there to eat, that's amazing. One thing for me with lunch is really important as well, is because there's days where I think I'm not going to have a crazy day, and all of a sudden I go in and I don't have time to go get lunch or go home for lunch. I work 5 minutes from my house, so I normally come home for lunch and I eat my leftovers. I take some time for myself. Sometimes I don't have an option to do that. And so a really big important thing for me too is to make sure that I'm really preparing my lunches. So breakfast and lunches prep. Second of all, third, I would say actually at this point, is have a support person. If you need to really reach out to somebody and say, hey, this week has been really hard. I've noticed some triggers. Dad, your camera's like not focused. I don't know.
Just keep going.
Okay.
Focus on you. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. I don't know what's happening with that thing.
Okay, no worries. So, the third thing being have your support person. The next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or we have about a little over 10 days until the first of the year. This is going to be a really big challenge. If you need to reach out to somebody and say, hey, I need to text you when I have a craving, or I need to text you when I feel like I can't control this, or I can't manage this for the next 10 days. If that's your spouse, if that is a friend, maybe it's somebody that is also in your world and also going down this journey with you. It looks good now, Dad. Um, Maybe someone like that. So have a support person. If you feel like you need a support person, reach out to a support person. Um, Fourth, find something else to do maybe in that moment. So, for example, my biggest thing right now has been water consumption. Number one, if you are hydrated, from my own experience, I found that if I'm very, very well hydrated, that my cravings aren't very bad. Like if I'm hungry or if I'm something, I see a donut, for example, I don't really have that drive. You know what I mean? Whereas when you're thirsty, and especially with me because I'm breastfeeding right now, if I'm thirsty, I notice I get hungry. It's not just it's with food too. Like but if I'm staying really well hydrated at 100 ounces of water a day, I'm able 120 ounces of water a day. I'm really able to navigate my life a lot better and really make sure that I'm staying on my path and around my my foods. The other thing that I highly recommend. So let's review that again before we get off track. First thing is triggers, knowing what your triggers are, making sure that you're very well prepared. Reach out to your support person, have a support person. If you need a support person during this time, feel free to shoot me a message and I will definitely be your support person during this time. And hydration. Hydration. I cannot say it enough. We are going into the winter months. Everything is getting dry, at least here in South Dakota. I am 10 times thirstier. If you are a new mom, if you are breastfeeding already, you know that you have to drink 10 times as much water as you did before, hence the 120 ounces, not my normal like 80 ounces. Um, so those are 4 recommendations. And I can't even stress enough. I mean, social situations, for example, and that's how to deal with work. The other thing, before I jump all over the place, because I want to finish this work conversation before we talk about moving on to social gatherings, family gatherings, because I'm about to go off to a family gathering all the way across the country with family that I actually haven't met before. Um, so I'm nervous because it's going to be a completely new environment for me. But I want to also address and actually ask my dad how he would manage communicating to individuals in a workspace about sweets coming into the workspace, because I find for myself that it's very difficult to say something because I'm very vocal about my lifestyle choices. And even still, I find that I still have candies showing up on my desk, or I still have, chocolates showing up on my desk. And I find that to be very difficult to navigate. And how, or do you have recommendation for maybe me to help me navigate that in a professional manner? Is it something, should I say, you know, like if I have somebody offer me a donut, like I've been saying, no, thank you, I'm not interested in that. But how do I also manage that with my team? Because I don't, do you know what I'm saying?
So I I think this is the way I handle it. The first is you've got to be matter of fact about things. And when when people offer me food like that, that I honestly cannot eat. Uh, if I do eat it, you know, one of the big problems with that is that you're not going to stop eating it. So you hear stories about this all the time. I mean, I've experienced it, you've experienced it, but the likelihood that you're going to have one chocolate and then not have another one is really, really slim. And one of the big worries that I have about myself is that if I start with that, it's the same situation with alcohol. If you start with it and you try to convince yourself, all right, I can only have one. Well, the next night maybe it's two, and then the night after that maybe you're back up to three. And
Mhm.
as a gout sufferer, you're headed down the road, which is going to end at flares. That's where it's going to end. So, and then I was pre-diabetic originally, so I reversed that. I stick to eating low carb. Um, uh, I've done it for 5 years now. It's an incredible lifestyle. But when you get into social situations, there can be a lot of pressure. And so what I'll say when it happens is, no, thank you. Please don't be offended, but it's not you or the candy, or I'm just throwing a term out there. It could be anything that's hyperglycemic or high glucose, whatever it is. I'm sorry, I can't eat that. It's not you. It's not the food that you made, but I there's too much sugar in it, and it's not good for me, and I can't eat it. Sorry, And with your closest friends, over a little bit of time, you should have explained what your situation is, right? It's a
Yeah.
little harder in the workplace. And in the case of like break rooms and things like that, I basically uh, stay out of them. I try not to go in. Obviously, if the only refrigerator in the whole place where you've got your lunch is in there, then I go in, I get my lunch, and then I leave. And so I try to make it harder for myself to have to deal with that exposure. But if someone tries to pigeonhole me in there and go, uh, check it out, yada yada brought in these great cupcakes or whatever, I'm just, I'm sorry, I can't eat those, and then leave. Um, and
And
I
that,
think that you have to learn to be able to say no. And I understand how difficult that is, because we have friends. Linda and I have friends, and in particular, this one couple, the wife always, every single time we get together, will hammer on me. She'll be like, "You should just try this." And her latest thing is, "Oh, it's a low carb recipe, right?" But um, she cooked the brisket in Coca-Cola. That's true. That's the truth of the matter. And I was like, okay, I'm sorry, I can't eat that. you know?
I had
Another thing that you can do in these social situations is make always, and I do this because that night with the brisket, I had brought my own food, right? Not to isolate myself, but rather I brought food that I could put down on the table that anyone could have that wants it.
Mhm.
And that way, you have a way to eat if there isn't anything else on the table that is going to work for you. So that's another solution too, and I think, yeah, I don't know how to deal with. In a perfect world, I would like to believe in a break room you could convince everyone to bring uh, whole foods that have been, made or whatever, like cheese and stuff like that. I guess that's processed, but I think you know what I'm trying to say. And you lay stuff like that out on the table and eat
Yeah.
it instead of, uh, these chocolate treats and everything that are so loaded up, with not only the fructose, but hyperglycemia is literally just as potent in a lot of respects. Um, Fructose is a mitochondrial poison. But anyway, I didn't mean to dominate over you again.
No, no,
You
no.
asked.
I think you mentioned something that is really interesting is like how like saying no. So for me, it's really important to lead by example, as in like I want to be a leader and I want my team to see what I do and maybe take that into consideration. So one thing that I do for sure is when there's something out like donuts, or the other day it was Christmas cookies, and I had one of my couple of my employees say, "Oh, this would be a really good, look at these cookies are really really good. Um there's only 22 grams of carbs in one cookie." And I in a really in a really polite way, I said, "You know, that would literally throw me out of ketosis." And then they were like, "Well, what is ketosis?" And I actually explained, and they were like, "Well, how do you know?" And I told them I'm finger sticking to check my biomarkers to know where I'm at, right? And I said, it's really important for me not to get out of ketosis because this is something that works for me, and I don't really feel like jeopardizing my health or, the health of my child for a sugar cookie that's packaged, and I don't know. So 22 grams of carbs is still that's pretty significant if you're looking at what it is, right? That they're giving you.
Well,
Uh,
what they're missing, and even in our own space, this gets missed, is that the timing in which what you just ate and how much there is in terms of the arrival at the liver is what matters. So just a little bit, when you look at the science and when you look at what the thresholds appear to be based on published literature, they're pretty low. That's the problem. So when you've got somebody running around going, well, I bought these keto snacks at Costco, and it's like, it's yes, there's less carbohydrate in the cookies you bought, but the problem is the way they're eaten, the timing and the concentration is still going to activate this pathway, and
that's a really
really,
good that's a really good point.
yeah. And the fact that you can't just eat one of them, anyway, I think if we could just get everyone to stick to eating whole food,
I
right?
think
They don't even have to like be as extreme as you are right now with getting into ketosis. They don't even need to worry about that. If they could just, yeah, cut the candy, right? And be low carb.
But what I was trying to say by that is explaining why you live this lifestyle, I think is important because if you are a leader, if you're in a supervisory role, like I think people are paying attention to you. And like I noticed that they pay attention to me on like how I eat and like, so I think being in a role, you also can make an impact by being
It's a really,
political.
really, really good point.
Like,
Yeah.
you can make an impact on people by, because, like, if you think about it, imagine if someone had, that individual came up to me and gave me the cookie, and I was like, oh yeah, you know what, I can just have one cookie. Like, what does that signify to that person if I can just have one cookie? You know what I mean? But
Well, no, I totally agree with you and almost missed the point.
yeah,
I did.
no,
Uh,
no, no. So that
yeah,
was,
you lead by example. And I think that's really important in our space too. Leading by example, you know.
yeah, it's like you can't walk the walk if you, what's it? You can't walk the talk or whatever if you're not actually walking it. There's that saying, but so that's what I'm trying to say is that I think it's important to, that if you are living this lifestyle, that it's okay to explain why you're living this lifestyle. And sometimes the easiest thing for me to say when someone hands me something is, nope, I don't eat sugar. Like, no sugar. Like, whether it's pasta, I don't eat sugar. Whether it's whatever it may be, I don't eat sugar. So, and that's a little bit easier for me than to explain, well, because sometimes people don't understand what is low carb, what is keto. It's just the easiest way for me to say is, I don't eat sugar, it's not good for me. Like, and that seems to work fine. But I do think it's important to lead by example in your spaces, whether it is in a full-time professional role, or with your family. Another really important thing to me is leading by example in my family, um, because I want us to be very metabolically healthy, especially my little guy who's slowly starting to um, eat solids. And that was a really scary thing. Like that packet of food that we got, remember when you were here? And it had sucralcla. It's like some long scientific name on the back of that. I was like, Dad, what does this mean? He's like, sugar. And I was like, cool, we're throwing that out. So if and that's another point to state, like, if you read the back of your package and you can't understand what the word means and it has
Why
sucralose,
would you eat it then? That's
why,
the thing.
why would you eat it?
Yeah.
And so I've, ever since that moment, like, if I'm gonna get the little pouches for Leo, I really look, and I make all of his food basically. We had steak last night with asparagus and zucchini, and I pureed that for him. And
Oh, I was gonna ask you, did you puree a little bit of the steak too?
yeah,
Yeah, and did he suck that right down?
yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. I did have to give him a little bit of prune, so that's the package that we got, the prune. Because prune really helps him, like, clear out his bowels, and
Oh,
like,
good.
he's super colicky. So the nice thing is the prune that we got is literally just pureed prune with water. So it's not anything, prunes are still high in carbs, but and high in sugar, but we're not giving him a lot of it. So it just helps him move everything out the way that it should be without having to give him the other crap that's in there. Um,
Right.
that, like, other medicines and stuff like that we don't want to give him. So I think the biggest thing is just being aware, and how can you educate in a political and nice way. Um, and for those of you going away to family things like me, I'm going away to a family thing, and I know for a fact that I'm going to be looked at like crazy when I don't want to eat all of the sweets and stuff. And who knows? I don't know what I'm getting myself into, but I already have a plan. First, I have a rental car so that I can go to the grocery store. That is literally, I have a rental car to go to the grocery store, and I'm going to make a big portion, hopefully, of Christmas dinner so that I'm able to contribute something that, more importantly, that I can eat. Um, the other thing that I did during a workday holiday party that we had is I actually made keto lasagna, the keto lasagna. Um, and everybody at the holiday party that I had was, like, so confused as to what it was, and they ate it, and everybody was like, "Wow, this is really good." Like,
Yeah.
way better than the actual, like, way better than actual lasagna. So, I think the other thing is that's exciting about educating is, if you like to cook, you can bring stuff. Like, I can bring stuff to my employees that is low carb, and or keto and have them try it and see what they think and how they like it. So, again, I just want to reiterate the four things that we talked about, which is number one, knowing your triggers, two, planning, three, your support person, four, staying very, 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 very hydrated during this season. I'm a strong believer in that water helps the whole process. It's helped me significantly. And salt. That's the one I forgot to talk about, salt. Drink your salt water.
All right. Well, listen, we're up on 30 minutes here, and we just wanted to pop on and lend some support to all of you out there that are confronting your break rooms with all of the sweets, and maybe think about some strategies to avoid it.
Really. Yeah. And again, we're here. I'm here too if you need to have a support person, if you need help, or if you need, shoot us an email or whatever it may be if you have questions. And really do the planning. It has helped me so much to make sure that I have a plan.
All right, everyone, have a great night and Merry Christmas to everyone. Safe travels if you're traveling, and eat low carb.
Yes. Merry Christmas. Stay away from the donuts. Just imagine a big X. Just eat like the eat.
Keep the carbs low. Down the road we go.
Exactly. Right. Bye, everyone.
Good night.